The planets have once again aligned, and after a 4-week hiatus, we are back. Is it 4 weeks? Is it 3 weeks?
It's been
a
a while.
long freaking time.
It's
That's
been a
right,
while.
folks. It's time
time
for another episode of the Roundtable Rethink podcast with me, your trusty and dependable host, Uncle Paddy, joined most weeks by twin brother and spare parts Ben, Andy the asshole.
Woo, come on.
And normally we would refer to him as the Philosopher King, but this week we have the Crypto King himself back from touring season in the form of Stevie Tel Avivi.
It's good to be here.
We are back this week. We will be discussing Nano Banana. No, not something that Emma uses to reference me naked. Lindy AI. What the hell is that? And why is crypto so freaking complicated? Stephen will guide us in a conversation about that. And then finally, an energy landscape update. My God, man, what a 3 or 4 weeks it's been in the world of AI. There just seems to be an avalanche of news. Once again, our prediction of a quiet summer has been blown up.
Blown to smithereens.
And there's tons to talk about. But anyway, it feels good for us all to be back together today. It feels like it's been too long. So it's nice to see you boys. Tell us what's been happening.
I'm just getting revved up to go away on holiday again. I'm away to Greece at,
He just arrived back. We've just got a pod going
again.
at 3:30 tomorrow morning. So I've been a busy week at work just trying to get caught up and get organised for getting away again. But you're right. I mean, 3 or 4 weeks in the world of AI seems like an eternity. There's so much happened since we last convened. Stephen, I'm sure you had a much more interesting week.
I wouldn't say that. Nice to be back. Been pretty much UK based. Universities are back, so that's been fun. Meeting some new students this week. And I was going to start by telling you a little bit about my crypto adventure.
Let's hear all about it.
So again, I mentioned this, full disclosure, many years ago, about 15, probably over 15 years ago, I invested in a company called MadeSafe, Ayrshire-based company. They were going to reinvent the web, and we've had all kinds of discussions as a group over the years. Was it a fraud? What
It's
was
been an
happening?
amazing source of ridicule.
And out of the blue, and in fairness to them, they've been working away on a really complex problem, which they seem to have cracked. They've certainly launched the Autonomy Network, and out of the blue, I get this email saying, you're going to get some tokens. To which I went, yeah. So I had a little look and started to play about with it. And it kind of resonated with me that there's a reason why crypto hasn't and is not going to take off anytime soon. Crypto, as far as I can tell, is basically gambling for big boys.
I think there's a missing part of the story here. So just to bring the punters up to date, they issued you. So you invested a long time ago.
Yep.
What that's resulted in is they've minted their own coin, their crypto coin.
Yep.
And they've issued you some denomination of that coin.
Yeah, so basically, I got a way to claim a number of coins, basically a token. So what I realized, first of all, was nothing is simple with crypto.
Yes.
So to actually claim your coin, you have to create a wallet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, many different products. I use MetaMask. Not overly complex to use, but still a bit of time to actually go out, open the wallet, go through all your KYCs. But once you get into that, what you begin to realize is it's a wallet, but it's like a wallet that's locked in a safe. There's no way to get from the safe to the shops. So you then have to go into something like Coinbase and create a mechanism to actually put money into your wallet or take money out of your wallet. So you have to have that. The other thing I never realized was that nothing happens. I always assumed from all that was talked about that crypto was a way of kind of getting rid of bank charges and percentage costs. No, you just get skinned in different ways. So before you even start, you've got to buy gas.
Some Ethereum.
Some Ethereum, something to make the system work. So, and it's fractional, but ultimately there's a cost in transaction. There's a cost in moving things. There's usually a cut taken by the wallet as well. You then have various things. So to actually get money out of the system, you have to either take it out through Coinbase, or there was a couple of things that were quite interesting. You get involved with things like bridging, and there was another name for. There's another thing where you put money into something, you lend it to another user or another system. My point in all of this is, for someone that's even moderately technical, there's an awful lot of stuff to learn.
Yeah.
And there is no easy use case. I ended up with a credit card linked to my MetaMask account. I've yet to work out if I can
Have you
actually
tried to
use
buy
it.
somewhere?
Have you tried to place your Costa order with Madecoin?
Well, and that's all of these things. So there's no doubt it's coming, but until someone sorts out all of the issues around simplifying, and as you rightly say, MadeSafe use the Arbitrum network and an autonomy coin. There's dozens of coins. And somebody said something to me, Stefan, thank you very much for all your help with this. It was a great piece of advice. It doesn't matter how good the underlying software is. So much of the value of coins depends on sentiment and movement.
It's literally marketing, supply and demand.
Yeah, but it's not even that, it's gambling. And people will buy into or dump out of products because they think they're going to make money.
Marketing speculation.
Yeah, it's speculation.
Yeah.
And even if you've got a great underlying product, which I think actually there's a lot to be said, this product has taken a long time to get there. I suspect there's something there that's happening, but ultimately you're still dependent on others. You either have to have a product that grows, creates demand for its own coin, and I can't think of too many use cases of any other piece of scalable software that actually depends on its own currencies yet.
Yeah, most of them are speculative instruments. There's very few, certainly, that I can see at a glance that have any utility that you can actually do an awful lot with them.
Yeah.
Like I say, try placing your order at Costa tomorrow with Madecoin and see
So
how.
how do you test if what you've got is real?
So basically,
You try and turn it into real money. You try and turn it into fiat.
So what I've done is, and again, thank you, Stefan, was you'd start to look at the volatility of different coins. So the autonomy network, relatively volatile, it's going up 4, 5, 6%. Not massive fluctuations. But what I did was swapped over a percentage into USDC. USDC is another coin pegged to the value of the dollar.
Yeah.
Okay.
So effectively, it's relatively stable and it moves a few percent. You can flip some of it into Ethereum or to Bitcoin. Again, speculative, but not as speculative. So you're ultimately, like most investment advice, and this is not investment advice.
Yes, for sure.
You can have a portfolio of different coins. But ultimately, the test is moving from where you believe the speculative side is into the safer coins. And all of them have a high degree of risk. Even USDC, when the big bank in America almost went bust a few years ago, the Silicon Bank,
Silicon Valley Bank, yeah.
I think USDC took a real dump at that point. So there's still a lot of
Risk and volatility.
risk involved in the system.
But if you've got if your coin is if a coin's worth X and you've got X coins and that shows up as a material value,
Yeah.
the only way to actually test if the value is real is to just turn it into cash.
It's turn it into cash, which is basically using something like Coinbase. So you have to
Right.
use your wallet, link it, I think, to Coinbase,
Okay.
sell it through Coinbase, and transfer it back out the system.
And there needs to
into
be,
your currency.
I suppose, the only thing about
to be a
the
buyer.
activity, there needs to be a buyer on the other side for your coin.
Well, that's where all of these coins are so interesting. So the autonomy coin that I've been selling a few of, there seems to be a market. So a relatively small number. And that's what I'm saying. You're not seeing 20% spikes up or down. Ethereum, Bitcoin, for the moment, are relatively stable. And again, that's like all markets. It's been a bull market for so long. Who knows what will happen? Ultimately, you can flip out into real world currency. That's just a matter.
And I believe that one of the challenges with that whole thing is, particularly get one of these more kind of obscure coins with a small market cap, if you end up with a relatively sizable chunk of that actually has some kind of potential value, when you try and realize that, if you try and dump all your coins at once, you also dump the price, because
Yeah.
There's just not enough liquidity there to absorb that, and the market cap is relatively small. So
The good news is I'm not leaving anytime soon. The value of my few coins are not going to dump the market. But you're right. But that is the whole point about these coins. They are relatively liquid, and therefore there's high volatility. It's why it's gambling for big boys.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you really know what you're doing, do not touch it.
no crying in the casino.
Yeah.
So I think the TLDR there is crypto 15 years later, 10, 15 years later, is still unbelievably complicated for most people to understand and execute on.
Yeah, there is no, from what I can see at the moment, no easy use case to use crypto in any form of transaction. It's an interesting store of wealth, and we can talk larger economics later on, but on the kind of small level coins, it's just an interesting way to spend 20 minutes.
And the
every
final
morning.
thought is, a lot of the crypto purists would say, if you're buying through one of these exchanges, not your keys, not your coins. If Coinbase goes burst for some, reason that I can't think of just now in the future, then do they go burst with all your coins? You know what I mean? Not your keys, not your coins. That's what a lot of the purists say. So get your money into cash before
All
these guys go up the shit.
All right, there
Okay.
you go. A fascinating discussion on the complexities of crypto. So,
From the newly minted cryptos,
well,
Stevie.
a nice segue from
Tel
going
Aviv.
from something that's very complex, that used to be very complex, which was editing pictures and graphic design, to now something that is trivially easy to execute on by anybody. So Google, it feels like it was about 10 days ago now, released this new capability called Nano Banana. No idea
Where
the
that name came
origins
from. Yeah.
of the name, but that's what it's called. So what is it? It's an AI image generation and editing tool. And so what it does is it allows users to transform or manipulate images with remarkable realism and creativity. So I'll list out some of its capabilities. So natural language editing, there's no tool set to learn. So you've got an image and you just describe the changes you want to the image.
And an agent carries out
into the chatbot, and then in the background, an agent
carries out the
executes
modifications
on
to the picture.
changes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you command it in plain English to alter things such as remove the person in the background, change the color of the car from red to blue, and so on and so forth.
Make
So
me
these are
look thinner.
yeah, exactly. Take 25 pounds off the subject in the foreground. It does object removal in addition, so the tool can seamlessly erase unwanted objects.
Whilst retaining perfect clarity and detail on the background.
Exactly. Refill the background in and make it feel natural and normal. Or it can insert things into the background. So Emma and I were messing about with the other night. We've got this little toy poodle. She dominates her entire life. So, of course, Emma naturally erased me from the picture and replaced me with Remy licking Emma's face.
As opposed to
you
looking at her face.
Photo restoration is another use case. So you can take your old black and white pictures and you can bring historical pictures back to life. Stephen, you can bring the pictures from your childhood back to life.
From your 30th birthday party.
They're still made out of silver. I think I have the negatives.
And then some of the characteristics of this capability is character consistency. So a significant feature is the ability to maintain the appearance of a person or a character across multiple generated images and scenarios. So that idea where, hey, take the moustache off that person, put a hat on them, and then it doesn't actually lose, as you iterate through the changes, it doesn't actually lose the appearance of the main subject in the picture. It doesn't degrade over time. Style transfer is another one. You can easily apply the artistic style of one image to another. So if you had a nice image of Gatsby-inspired theme night that you were at, then you could take that theme and apply it to any other image. So it's incredible. And I don't know if anybody ever tried to use Photoshop in the past, and I would consider myself a pretty sophisticated tech user. I found Photoshop freaking unknowable.
Nightmare. Trying to...
A gazillion different buttons that all did things and layers and sequencing. You don't need to know any of that shit to
Drawing
get
borders round about subjects to try and take them out, and then all the terrible stuff that happens to the background, the distortion of the background as you try and do it.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
Are wedding photographers dead? Is this another industry that's going to just disappear because who needs a wedding photographer when you can go back
Well, you
and
need
go,
to shoot the shots, editing.
I don't think wedding photographers dead. You ideally still want that high quality picture captured on a really nice camera, but what you can do with that picture is basically unlimited.
So, by the way, just so you know, a lot of wedding photographers already just take the images and they send the edits to there's people in the Philippines and stuff that have got all the software tools that are very geared up to do that at very low cost. The next iteration of that is what is going to be the recurrent theme of tonight, which is AI is eating SaaS software.
Yeah.
So things that you would have paid a subscription to a product for will now just be invoked through AI at very, very low cost.
What I also noticed about this as well, do you remember the whole AI can't spell, AI images have people with 6 fingers in them?
Yeah.
All that stuff has been solved in Nano Banana. You can superimpose any text you like onto the picture. It gets it right every time. I found it really impressive. I would say the DEI filters are turned up quite high on Nano Banana. That's my only criticism so far.
As all Google products are.
If you put anything with kids in it, it won't do a thing for you.
Yeah.
So I just uploaded the picture of Sam and I wanted to do something goofy to the picture and send it. It was like, because it recognised it was a kid.
Yeah.
okay,
So the DEI filters are turned up pretty high.
don't worry, Grok will get that sorted in a few weeks.
Grok will be the unhinged uncle version of this pretty soon. And so again, we were only talking 3 months ago that image gen models don't spell. They add in extra limbs and extra fingers and extra toes. All that's been solved in the last 3 months. And now we're in a new paradigm where unlimited graphic design is available to everybody, including the least sophisticated computer users.
Yeah.
Now, what does it mean for the incumbents? So I had a little look at Adobe's stock price, and the truth is it's been absolutely devastating for companies like Adobe. So this year alone, from the start of the year to the middle of September, Adobe's stock price has dropped 21%. They've lost a fifth of their value.
Yeah.
And on the day Nano Banana was introduced, it dropped 2% on that day.
Yeah.
So the market is speaking volumes here. The market is looking at these creativity apps, the ability to generate code, the ability to generate images, the ability to generate video. The ability to generate music.
Yeah.
And they're very much signaling that all their capabilities, the creativity skill sets are about to be abstracted away and become democratized across everybody using these very powerful AI capabilities. So the truth is, this year's been a pretty devastating year for Adobe so far. They've lost a fifth of their entire value. And I only see it getting worse.
If you forget Adobe for a second as an individual company and then just extrapolate that out a wee bit further and say, what does it mean for the army of 10 million freelance graphic designers on Fiverr that do remedial graphic design work? For example, the cover art that we got constructed for the podcast.
We could have saved ourselves a $5.
We paid 80 quid for it or 75 quid for it.
Hunt that guy down, Andy. I want the money back. It was fucking dreadful.
With a product like Nano Banana, it would have made absolutely no sense at all because all we did, think about what did we do in that process? We gave him 3 headshots of each of us. We told him a wee bit about what the podcast was and he came up with the cover art. If you just vibe coded that into Nano Banana, it would probably produce something equally as good, if not better, at zero cost.
Correct.
So what does that do? And this is where I end up with AI on pretty much everything. Just add time to that. Just add product improvement to that. There's another class of people that are so in the shit right now as freelance graphic designers, particularly those on the more remedial end.
At the low end, logo design, letterhead design,
But you're
business card
talking about
design,
millions
it's
of
all
people
going away.
Yeah.
But it's everywhere because even things, the one that comes to me is thinking about things like PowerPoint. You would go to a store of graphic art, and of course, there's all the free graphic art. There's graphic art you used to buy because you needed good images for. Oh God!
But there's still an element of fuckery on PowerPoint where you've got to try and line up all the elements of it on a page and move them all manually together. You're just vibe coding these things into existence through interacting with a text box. and then their agent going and making all the perfect modifications herself, which is again a theme that we will return to shortly.
Yeah. So I'm afraid this is a trend that I don't think anybody could have predicted, which is the creative roles in society, the designing, the coding, building things, the builder tool set is very much being consumed by AI. I mean, I showed you guys a demo before we started, right? All the tools I need for my consultancy business, I vibe coded them into existence using a platform called Lovable, an invoicing platform, an expense management platform, landing pages for this, landing pages for that, forms that write, you know, the form data to spreadsheets, just everything I need to be efficient to run this business. I've not licensed any of that. I've built it. And a year ago, I would have licensed all that software.
But more important, you didn't just build it, you vibe coded it into existence without writing one line of code.
Yeah, and built it specifically to only my needs, like only the fields I need, only the things I want to report
For your specific
no
business.
a single unnecessary field or anything in that software. So this idea of personalized software just for you.
But here's the question. I mean, you are a tech genius, and therefore that software you can use quickly. What about somebody like me who's a kind of tech, whatever, middle of the ground? Would I be able to get that same level of benefit, or would it take me hours and hours and hours to bring my skill level up to get that kind of output?
You could 100% build something useful on Lovable in the next couple of hours.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
So
and deploy it.
So listeners, go try.
Yeah.
Go do.
And that's a great thing about these products. Remember, you don't need to take the code that it generates and then go and find some kind of script runner to actually deploy the code. The code runs and executes inside Lovable, so it's got that environment baked into the product as well. So you're not just building the apps, but you're deploying the apps inside the Lovable environment, just ready to use.
And by the way that you start it is you go, right, I need an invoicing platform. So you go to Gemini or you go to ChatGPT, you pick your API tool of choice, and you go, you're a master Lovable prompt engineer with 25 years experience writing world-class prompts for the Lovable vibe coding platform. I have a small consultancy business and I'm looking to create a basic invoicing tool that needs to bill out in 3 different currencies and blah, blah. Create me an amazing Lovable prompt that would be considered world-class, and it spat out a 3-page long prompt. And that got me 80% of the way there. So I just pasted it into Lovable and hit go, and 5 minutes later, I had the basics of an invoicing platform. Then I looked at the things I don't like. There was 2 fields that were misaligned up in the top. So I said, I don't like that the first name and last name field don't line up vertically. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'll fix that. Boom, fixed. Pick the next thing you want to change, and you just feed it that instruction. Fixed. And then every now and then it will fix something that will throw an error. And it will auto-detect there's an error, and then it will fix the error it just auto-detected without any intervention from you.
Yeah.
And so it really was just probably a couple of 100 different interactions back and forth over a weekend, describing things I wanted added in or taken out or moved or modified.
And by the way, sorry.
I was going to say, so literally it's no more difficult than speaking. Previously, you'd have spoken to a programmer or a software engineer, told him to do something. Now the software is literally doing it. And if you're not sure what to ask, you just go to Gemini or Perplexity and say, what do I ask my programmer? And it tells you what to ask.
Do you know the big insight I've had in the last week, and it's nothing to do with the conversation that we're having, but it's the conversation we're having has prompted me to say this. We're fast approaching the point where there is no point in learning prompt engineering. The AI tools are so good at taking your shitty prompt and turning it into an amazing prompt. You don't really need to know how prompt engineering works. And that's called meta prompting. And so taking the kind of, you getting yourself halfway there just by typing roughly the thing you want to do, and then saying to AI, you're a world-class prompt engineer with 20 years experience. You only build world-class prompts. Take my shitty prompt and turn it into a world-class prompt.
And there's office.
Boom.
And there's,
done.
Yeah, there's off-the-shelf stuff as well, like Prompt Optimizer and Prompt GPTs that you can just download from the ChatGPT store and just put your copy in, and it will automatically create you a nice structured markdown prompt that you can just paste in and to a model and run it. So we're approaching this kind of scary point, this amazing and scary point where you've got agents building agents. And so the Gen 1 tooling for AI was You had to know exactly how you wanted something to work. You had to manually interact with all the different nodes to stitch it all together. Now all you need to do is be able to articulate yourself to an agent that will go and create it all for you.
So I'm going to go off topic here, but I think it's probably a good one just to throw in at this point. When you think about how quickly all this stuff has happened, way, way faster than we ever thought, and you start to look at whether it's Elon or anyone else talking about robotics and what's coming down the line, you know that robots 101, we're on into, I think, Tesla robot model 3.
Yeah.
But you know that when it hits the ground very quickly, I mean, within 12 to 36 months, obviously production is different. You have to scale up for production. But within 12 to 36 months of robotics, we're going to see the exact same thing happening. We're going to see robots going from passable to being exceptional within a very, very short period.
Well, if we're going to go down this segue for a wee second before we return to move on to the product that I wanted to speak about, I think you're absolutely right. Elon did his keynote at the All In Summit the other day, speaking specifically about Tesla V3, Tesla Bot V3. So human levels of articulation in the hands in particular, which is the big technical problem that needs to be resolved. All the vertical integration that's required. So none of the actuators and the products and the power electronics that they're using to develop these robots are available off the shelf. So everything's having to be developed in a vertically integrated way from A to Z. But anybody out there that was saying, don't worry about AI, become a plumber. Anybody sitting right now, please understand, if you don't think that the Tesla V3 bot with perfect articulation and a 400 IQ AI brain in its head can crack plumbing. Do you remember the Matrix when they put the plug in the back of his head and he goes, I know Kung Fu, like 3 minutes later? That will... Do not imagine...
You'll download the plumbing program.
It will download the plumbing program and it will plumb fantastically better than any plumber you could hire just now on Facebook, and it will respond to your email, it'll respond to your messages in time, show up in time, and do a fantastic job. And by the way, you're not talking about some dystopic 20-year future. These will be available in probably 5 years, and they'll probably be scaling to volume production, 1 million to 2 million units a year within 6 years.
Well, again, I was listening to Friedberg talking to the Google chap, the
Demis Hassabis.
Yeah. And again, their attitude to it, which is, so we've got the same thing happening. Google are coming at it from a slightly different angle, from a whole world, understanding the whole physics. So, and I didn't mean to kind of take us off topic, but I think I just find the whole speed of progression of AI as we are seeing it has been so incredibly fast. It just makes you think when robotics hit, it's also going to be a avalanche.
Yeah.
And so what we're saying is we've got change upon change upon change ahead of us.
And I always love listening to Demis because I think he's like, so Demis is the guy who runs Google's AI efforts, Google DeepMind.
DeepMind.
By the way, a thing that came out of that interview that I thought was astonishing, the team's 5,000 people working on AI. 5,000 people.
It's a lot of bots.
And I thought he always does a good job of giving a balanced view. He says, listen, AGI, that's 5 to 10 years away. Like he says, right now you can trip AI up with a simple high school math question, and then it has moments where it can do PhD level performance on a specific subject. But a true AGI system would never make that mistake on a high school math question.
Yeah.
So he still feels like and so having said that, Friedberg jumps in and goes, so do you think we're actually plateauing now in terms of capability? Do you think all AIs are converging to roughly the same set of capabilities? And he went, absolutely not.
Yeah.
He said, we don't see any evidence of that at all in the lab. We see scaling laws,
Galloping progress,
huge progress on every rev of the model. I think the insiders are saying we're not going to see a Google Gemini 3.0, which would be the next rev of their models, till November time. And there's significance behind that time, and I don't recall what it is right now, but they're kind of predicting around about November time. But and I think it's the same thing we've been talking about for months. Each of these guys is hardware constrained. There's more supply, there's more demand than there is supply. They're all doing cartwheels in the background to balance resources and juggle resources and throttle load.
Yeah.
And if you actually follow the guy that runs the Google Cloud platform, which I do on Twitter, he's on talking about it every day.
Yeah.
TPU is running red hot, unfortunately having to throttle some workloads in different parts of the world. So fascinating to me that Scaling laws are in effect. New models are on the shelf. I think actually by the time we do another podcast, Claude 4.5 will be out.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet about that earlier today. And I think model performance and improvement is on the shelf right now. It's being restrained and held back, and companies are trying to rack more compute before releasing the next generation of models, because the bigger models, they're more resource intensive. And so the improvements are all there. And because we're segueing like crazy right now, it's one of the philosophical questions we were having last night, which is, there's the army of people that goes, 95% of deployments of AI inside enterprises are failing. It's all bullshit. You know, we'll pick this up again when AI is good enough. And it's like, for me, that is the craziest attitude in the world. Because I accept all the things. I accept that AI is imperfect. I accept that it's really hard to make things consistent with AI.
And I also accept that the vast majority of AI deployments have failed in most companies.
Yeah, so accepting all that stuff, if you still took Google Gemini away from me tomorrow, I wouldn't even know how to work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I would be staggeringly less efficient than I am right now. So despite all that, there's still amazing value to be captured from these things today.
Yeah.
The learning curve really is still 6 to 12 months. So absolutely, you should do the learning curve right now. You should have done it a year ago, and the next best time to do it is tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that when models improve,
What
and
you've
new
already
capabilities
built.
come along, you'll be in the perfect position instantly to take advantage of that, rather than going, well, they're good enough now, I'm going to spend the next 12 months learning how to
How many
use them.
times have you looked at the web and said, gosh, if I go back to web 0.1.0 and did X, I could make a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, so what we're seeing is that level of innovation now, and it's nothing that you do just now is going to be wasted. There's also the whole thing about first mouse doesn't always get the cheese, but it's learned a lot, and second mouse definitely gets the cheese. So it's being there. You know, you're in the game. And I think that's
Build and run your prompts. Build your custom GPTs inside the Chat GPT. We have unlocked unbelievable value and efficiency inside my own company just working with the current capability inside the Chat GPT account. I mean, it's incredible how much time we've saved ourselves and the tools that we've managed to build internally without having to, engage developers and stuff that have made Lee a fantastically better salesperson, Kerry a fantastically better customer support person, me not so much.
you more time.
So while we're on that point, let me just rewind the clock back 10 minutes because I wanted to pick up the baton from Paddy where he left off his chat about Nano Banana and talk about a product that I've been playing with recently called Lindy AI.
Lindy spelled Lindy.
Lindy.ai. So just as Nano Banana is vibe coding for photo manipulation and editing, Lindy is vibe coding for creating agents. So what's the promise of AI? What does every business dream of? Every business dreams of having a suite of agents and AI employees and automations that essentially run vast majority of their business for them, or at least big parts of their company for them. And what is the problem? Why can nobody get off the mark with automations and GPTs and agents? It's because right now, the tools that are available to build them and to manage them and to run them are still pretty difficult from a technical point of view to use. So Paddy is a power user of NAN. So let's compare something like NAN against Lindy in a basic use case.
Yeah.
So if Paddy wanted to create an automation, he would need to plan the automation himself elsewhere. So what do I want this automation to do? He would then need to interact manually and decide what nodes he was going to try and stitch together manually to create these automations. A node can be a trigger. A node can be invoking an AI agent to do a task. Whereas the approach that Lindy has is you're just dealing with an agent, explaining to it exactly what you want the automation to look like or the type of AI agent that you're trying to build. And Lindy goes off and conceives of the architecture, conceives of the plan, has a two-way conversation with you. So I'll give you an example because it's always good. You can bring these things to life by examples. So let's say, for example, I wanted to build a really simple agent that monitored my inbox for important emails and created thoughtful responses to put into a draft for me to basically approve before or edit before sending. So I can basically just give that brief to Lindy. Lindy will then stitch together the 3 or 4 nodes. So it will ask me some follow-up questions. It will say, oh, what email service do you use? Would you like this to automatically send to the customer, or would you like it to go to a draft? Would you like me to invoke a compute environment? It's got access to its own computer that it can invoke to run off and, you know, access a web browser or a terminal to get additional information that it might need to properly answer that question. And do you have any proprietary information that you would like me to check before I answer? So let's say it was a customer support email. I would create, it's already got its own storage there. So I would just create the documentation, all our customer support documentation, load it in there, and then it will put together all that architecture in the right order. And all I have to do is hook up the services. So I just give it the login for the credentials for my Microsoft Office account, and then I write a couple of system prompts, and bang, in 1 hour I can build that agent on Lindy. Whereas in NAN, I'd be fucking about for half a day with trying to figure out first and foremost what nodes that I needed to invoke in NAN. And the other thing that's great about Lindy is it's got features that these other agent builders don't currently have at the moment. So it's got a voice agent that's automatically baked into it. So, for example, if you wanted to create a customer support agent, right now you would have to use like a separate product, like something like Vapi, which we've covered on the product before, whereas it's got its own custom voice agent built into Lindy as well to either receive calls or make calls as well. LinkedIn scraping tools, and a lot of them are native to Lindy. They're not actually third-party services that you need to go away and sign up for and then invoke inside of Lindy. So, without getting too technical, it's just a continuation of Paddy's chat there about Nano Banana. You now have agents building other agents, and your only job is to articulate to the agent what you want your AI agent to do or your workflow to do, and it will go and create a plan and build all the nodes and stitch them together perfectly, and all you have to do is hook up and credentialize all the nodes. And so we're getting to a point where completely non-technical people can now build fabulously useful automations and workflows inside their business without engaging a developer.
Yeah.
Or without having a lot of technical knowledge.
And it's got that idea. So if you took Lindy as a tool away and you just talked about that idea, it's got profound implications.
Because everything will go that way.
Because everything can really just be an agent in a workflow. Yeah. Agents and workflows are going to swallow the entire software industry.
So taking that forward a step, and it's fascinating. So we become a world of managers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're a manager. You're managing processes. We're lucky enough, we're all mature. Some of us more mature than others. But we all understand our processes. So we could go and create the agents and understand how to run them. Where do young people learn when we don't need them anymore to create the agents? Where do they get the experience of knowing how to do this? Or do they just come in and usurp us because they understand the technology better?
This is a huge philosophical question. In a world of exponentially improving digital employees, where is the financial incentive for employers in the future to hire meat sacks with all the HR overhead, all the liabilities that go along with them, when you can just spool up the next digital employee? I don't have a good answer for that. My answer is actually relatively dystopic. Once again, I'll say it for the 20th time on this show. I think this leads to catastrophic levels of unemployment in the future. Somebody give me the alternative case.
So I was listening to a really interesting podcast the other day, and the general point was either this is the paradise world of the future where we are all released to be phenomenally creative, and therefore we all own our own agent, and we all can then go off and enjoy ourselves while our agent does the work, which has to be creative. Or we live in a world where the man owns all the agents and we're all unemployed begging for crumbs. And it's going to be a very much, and we've talked about that. This again, is this the revolution where all wealth and all control goes to a few companies in the middle, or is this a decentralization of ownership to all of us?
For kids, I think the only defendable position here is develop the skill set of critical thinking. How do you manage and orchestrate your own suite of agents doing a task or providing a service that you've conceived of, and standing over it as the orchestrator of that symphony as all your agents go off and do their own thing? If you're just going to be a worker bee who would normally have been in a department doing productive work, all of that stuff's going to get automated away with agents and workflows, in my opinion.
You were telling me about a podcast you watched this week. Was it Stephen Bartlett? Had somebody
Stephen
on?
Bartlett had
Tell that story again.
So he had an AI safety expert on OpenAI. It was way back in the OG from way back in the day. In fact, Paddy, pull it up while I'm talking here.
Pull it up, Jamie.
And we'll get the guy's name, because this is actually a really fascinating one to watch. And he's way worse than me. He thinks we're going to 99% unemployment. That's him there. What's his name?
Dr. Roman Yampolsky.
And he's saying a much more lettered version of my argument, which is, give me an argument to the contrary when these fabulously capable agents that cost almost nothing to build and run, why would you choose to hire a highly flawed person with all the HR overhead and all the liabilities you're taking on, instead of spooling up the next digital employee? By the way, you could make a case for that today. Just imagine how compelling that case is going to be in 24 months, 36 months, when these things are literally, when each one of these agents that you spool up is going to have a fucking 500 IQ. And no make any mistakes, and no get tired, and no need coffee, and no need 6 weeks a year holiday, and holiday pay, and maternity pay, and paternity pay, and sue you if you say something nasty to it. Where is the incentive for employers to ignore all of that?
I think
and hire the human.
I think like most revolutions, it will be the hockey stick curve. There will be, as we've got at the moment, the slow uptake, highly skilled, highly personalized interactions are going to remain. Doctors, lawyers, accountants in the short term will remain, but it's the lower end, the more vulnerable people are going to struggle probably the quickest, as relatively low level, admin type jobs get eaten up really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to predict when and the timeline. And given unlimited time, I can definitely see that trend happening. I don't
think it's going to happen next year or the year after.
No.
But what you're already seeing both here and in America is, and now I'm not correlating back to AI, but I have to believe that there's some. I'm not directly correlating back to AI, but you have to think that AI is some contributing factor. Unemployment has increased in the UK every single month for the beginning of the year. Are you trying to tell me that AI has got 0% impact on that?
No, I'm not trying to say that at all.
I'm not sure though, and again, it'd be fascinating to know the number of people. It may have frozen employment. I'm not sure many people have been made unemployed yet as a result of an AI.
I think it's a slow death. I think what happens is I think companies who are adopting AI and being AI first, AI led businesses, I don't think will necessarily identify a bunch of people to fire. What will happen is it'll be a slow death version of that. So as people naturally drop out of the team, they go and work in other businesses, they retire, they just won't backfill their roles.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think what will happen also is, as a bit of the cryptocurrency thing, as the systems get easier to use, as you're still both high level users, as the more low and mid level company managers. And again, AI implementation, we've talked about this off the pod, AI implementation is still a relatively high level, misunderstood skill set. As that becomes more understood, as AI becomes a bit like software, kind of endemic, then people will start to use it more and more. We're still early in that curve.
I think the only thing that can slow the trend down would be, in order for agents to get work done, they've got to access the data where you do work. And right now, that's very difficult.
That's the biggest bottleneck.
So it's not that the capability's not there, but like, so if you're a business, your data's in Salesforce.com or it's in your ERP system that runs your business. And so unless the agents can get access to that, they can't do all this work that they're capable of doing. Now, you have to think that the software vendors who run your business, like your ERP system and Salesforce, and we know Salesforce for sure because they've got Agentforce and they're already thinking about this problem. You have to think that these other vendors eventually all build the capabilities, the hooks, because they'll monetize that, right? I mean, if I'm the last software vendor in the ERP industry, and I can see that if I sell you a capability, you can get rid of a department full of people, or you can get rid of X number of people, then man, is that easy for me to justify putting a big price point on it. Because if I'm selling you something for $100,000 to save $1 million, you're going to buy it.
And right now,
so the capabilities will come and the access will come, but right now the access is not there. So if the agentic capabilities were as good as Andy says they are, and they will get there over time, access will be the trend or the theme that slows down what otherwise could be a tsunami.
And again, excuse my ignorance, but if agents do what you say they do, ultimately, if you give agents the same level of access that your individuals have, all you're doing is building access in at this end rather than at the other end.
It's the structure. It's the structure that they require to access the data. So right now, you've really only got two.
But what Stephen's talking about is, will it get smart enough one day where the agent can just like log in as a user into your ERP system and use it like a user?
Exactly. So that's the only thing.
RPA, robotic process automation. We've had that for years. UiPath do that.
But right now, the two big options you've got is manually building API endpoints in front of all the various different nodes of your data so that the agents can access it in a very structured and defined way, or you recreate that structure in that data set in what's called a vector database. But listen, I'll tell you something right now, and it's a podcast for another day, but the success that we are having just recreating a lot of the stuff in exported PDFs and the agents that we've built inside ChatGPT's custom agent builder, this is what I mean. It's not perfect, but don't underestimate how much more fabulously capable you can become in a business just by using the lo-fi solutions that are currently available to you.
And it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be better.
Yeah.
And lo-fi is still relatively hi-fi.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's enough AI talk. Stephen, you want to
bring us home with the current state of the energy market? What's going on?
Well, I just thought it would be useful to do a little bit. There was announcements today about Britain and America starting to look at joint ventures on nuclear power. So it's nice to see that there was a bit of movement. And I thought, where are we? So I had a quick kind of trawl through some news. Basically, I suppose AI and energy is an intersection which has both got negatives and positive. AI is using a lot of energy. It's a problem with power consumption, but it's starting to create a lot of the solutions as well. So 2 or 3 things I want to touch on very quickly. Batteries, we talked a lot about batteries. In the UK, we're particularly prone to battery and storage issues because we've gone down so far the renewable route. So where are we battery-wise, both for long-term storage and short-term storage? So this is all kind of fairly recent things. So we talked a little bit about batteries, anode, cathode, and the electrolytes. Solid state batteries are here. And QuantumScape and PowerCo demonstrated the first real-world applications this month with an 844 watt hours per litre. Now, I think, again, roughly...
In terms of energy density.
It's about 290, 300. So it's a massive upscale in that. So massive energy density and a 12-minute from 20 to 80% recharging cycle.
Mm-hmm. And how do these things do over like 100,000 charges and discharges? Has that not always been one of the challenges?
At the moment, they seem to be. I mean, they're not there yet. So I think this was shown at the first time, and I think that battery was used in a Ducati motorcycle. So this is the first time we've seen a motorcycle running off that battery. Volkswagen, and I'll come on to that in a second, but I think Volkswagen are already building this type of stuff into their one cell model. So as far as I understand Volkswagen's business plan, they're having batteries that can effectively swap out over time as you get better battery. But so high density power is coming here. The Chinese have achieved a 600 watt hours per kilogram. So effectively that's double the density of Tesla's most productive battery. So that means either half the size or twice the range.
Wow.
So again, bringing down the cost.
And the cost advantage of that. We can imagine future generations of BYDs powered of that are going to be very attractive.
So these are both existing, these are both new technologies coming in. CATL, they use an LFP battery. And what they've been doing is simply improving their existing processes. So they're a lithium battery.
Lithium iron phosphate. Yeah.
And what they've effectively done is they're changing the electrolytes to make the battery more efficient. So they're not changing the basic fundamentals. They're now up to 758 kilometers in real world driving. So not the kind of 758, but only does 500. This is real world tests. And that's very much directed at the European electric car market to try and give us real life battery power. And then the last one is a company, UK Innovations, and they're doing long duration storage. So basically, again, one of the problems that we have is lithium batteries don't hold power for that storing in and out for national grid type things. Yeah. So this is a company that is looking at batteries which we can use in the power grid. That we can actually use these, and the structure of them allows multiple uses. So they're talking about a lifespan of up to 25 years, cheaper to build, not as energy dense, but it will hold its energy for 25 hours a cycle rather than the 3 to 4. Yeah. So lots and lots of things that are happening. Some, as I say, are here. Some are like the Volkswagen battery, just on the verge of coming in. And there's a massive amount of investment beginning to flow in. Nat Power, the government are also putting in place caps and collars to try and encourage investment. So they're kind of capping the top and collaring the bottom to make sure that the battery development companies have got a market in which it's worth their while investing. So all that stuff's kind of good for where we're at. Fusion, lots of stuff. I mean, if we see what's happening with AI and fusion, what's interesting there is there's a massive amount of investment at the moment. Something like 9.7 billion is now being invested in fusion, of which 2.6 billion in the current year, an uptick. And that's part of this US, UK nuclear and fusion partnership. Right. So we're seeing constant improvements both in the number of superconductor wires that they're using. They're up to something like 5,500 wires. I don't know enough about it to understand why, but the number of wires is obviously an important part. We're seeing the heat and the retention of heat. So we're now looking at a fusion type solution, which is within probably our lifetime. We're talking maybe 5 to 10 years.
It's always 5 years.
Oh, I know. Everything's
Your
only 5 to 10 years.
Andy and I's, but maybe not yours.
But it's nice to see that UK at least seems to be part of that discussion, and that's a really important thing. The grid itself, one of the problems we've talked about in the pod way at the beginning was the UK grid, the problem. So at least we're beginning to invest in the grid, 14 billion in supply chain framework for civil works as of August this year. Solar expansion in the UK. So a lot of things happening, but we're getting in these HVDC cables. So these are the ones that help retain the amount of electricity that we're transporting across over long distances.
A stat I would be fascinated to know is, what is the practical... Because like where renewables and all that really work is if you just become your own grid and you deploy them locally and they're powering your house, but they're not contributing anything to the grid. Like, it seems like it's really difficult to expand the capacity of the grid. Like, almost impossible, right? I mean, what I'd be fascinated to know is if the grid was capable of producing X units of energy last year, what is the delta from, like, can you grow the grid 5% a year, 10% a year? And what's the context of that in a world where we need doubling and tripling and quadrupling power?
And remember, the grid's not producing anything. It's just distributing what's being produced.
Yeah.
I think there's something like 31 gigawatts has been tendered, as in is out to tender, of additional energy supply.
Capacity.
9 gigawatts has been contracted for in 2025.
Yeah.
So we are definitely putting more power in.
But what's the context of that in a grid that produces what?
Yeah, and these are facts and stats I don't have. I think what is good though is we're definitely making progress. We seem to have, in some of the nuclear products that we're looking at, is again these modular nuclear, hopefully lesser regulation. But again, there's a problem with both of those because at the moment the supply mainly comes from China and Russia of the nuclear materials that we need to actually build.
Well, that's encouraging. Let's hope that it all results in the next 10 years in us only having the highest industrial energy prices in the Western Hemisphere instead of the entire fucking world.
Yeah, so just again, a quick Google search. It says that the UK electricity grid's total installed capacity is higher than real-time output, standing at about 100 to 110 gigawatts in 2024. So by adding 9, it's what, 8%?
10%, yeah.
So it's
31 gigawatts tender. So basically there's a lot of stuff happening. So we seem at least to have acknowledged and be addressing.
Yeah.
We seem, I
But it
think...
seems like it's a slog as well. It seems like it's a long, slow road to add meaningful capacity to the grid.
We have ignored our infrastructure for decades.
Not just the grid, all the fucking infrastructure.
There's a whole pod about,
about a reservoir
why
for
the
the
UK is
70s.
screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen,
Stephen,
we
do you
will not
want
be
to-
building anything anytime soon. We are flatlining economy, which is now confirmed to have zero growth. in the economy.
#stagflation.
Yes.
Another podcast. Stephen, did you have a wee philosophical sign off that you wanted to leave us with?
We were kind of riffing on this before, and I think it's really easy to get depressed about all of the things. It does, we'll not go about anything specific in the news, but there's a lot of bad news hitting the world, and what we see is the controversial or the political parties obviously taking such different views, problems across the world. And one of the things that came to my mind was maybe the discussion should move away from politics, the rights, the wrong, and should move towards culture. How do we change the culture? We've talked about it here for entrepreneurialism. It's about mindsets and behaviors. But how do we move the political and the economic discussions away from this adversarial world to a culture base? What's a culture that we in the UK or we in the Western world would like to have, and what do we need to do to change that culture?
Yeah. Certainly, it's not an easy one. I mean, it's been wired into us for tens or hundreds of thousands of years to smash each other's heads in with a rock, over a woman or over a cave, and we're still doing it 100,000 years later. So there does seem to be something dark innately wired into us, something confrontational. So I don't have any easy answers to that. I think one of the things that I've certainly noticed recently that, again, is one of the things that social media has very much contributed to is our indifference to horror. And it's I think social media has turned us all slightly into sociopaths. I mean, I don't know in times gone by if you could have watched somebody getting their throat blown out at close quarters and go, oh my God, that's terrible, and then go out for dinner 3 years later and not really think too much about it. So there's definitely something about ingesting high levels of kind of negative stroke, kind of violent stroke, adversarial content. I mean, you and I are worse for this, Paddy. We spend... Not so much you, Stephen, but we definitely spend too much time on platforms like X and stuff. Yeah. And because you do that, and because of the way the algorithm's wired, you kind of get a perfect distillation of all the fucking worst things that's happened in the world in it. And you can be forgiven for thinking...
It creates a distorted viewpoint of
reality. It creates a distorted view. You can go, fucking hell, are we on the edge of civil war? Is the sky falling in on us? But actually, there's been a meme that's been doing the rounds for the last few days, which is... something like go out and touch the grass or something like that. And the whole concept is it's actually not a bad thing to unplug, even if it's just for a few days. go outside, play a game of golf, go for a walk, meet a friend for a coffee, and understand and realize the world is pretty civilized. Most people are pretty nice. Most places are pretty safe. You sit having a coffee, you look round about you. People are just trying to get on with their lives and raise their families and get on with their jobs and live a relatively quiet, civilized life. And I've done that over the last couple of days, and it's actually been like, yeah, you're right. And I'm going to do a lot of that next week in Greece as I eat and drink myself sick for a week.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about the programming note there. So you're away next week to Greece, and then when you get back, I'm away. So there's so I'm in Ibiza. I will become the Ibiza final boss.
You just need the mushroom cut and you're there.
So it might be another couple of weeks before we get another podcast, but a nice way to end it. Unplug for social media for a while. Get out there and take a walk.
But not before you listen to this episode.
But not before you subscribe, like, and listen to the Roundtable Rethink podcast. Available wherever you get podcasts or at www.roundtablerethink.com.
That's it, guys. Another one in the can.
There you go. In the can. Everybody have a good week. Bye-bye.
Have a good one. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.